Welcome back. It's been a while since the last video. That's because I saw some of the comments and I was trying to basically fix some stuff. So in this video, we are going to completely remove that code. I saw a lot of people saying, like, why do we have to use code to get the new input system working? And at first, I didn't think you could do it without it, but I did go and do some research. What I mean by research, I just poked around till I got it working. So we're going to we're going to update this, all that we've done up to this point. So if we play the game, we had moving around and we had jumping. I'm going to translate that into using the new input system. So right now this is using the new input system, but it is using this input interface script. So let's start by removing anything we don't need. So I'm going to remove this new input script. I'm going to delete it from the project. It's taking a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to go to my settings, go to my input here. Let me close that first and just turn this off. Delete this C# script that it makes from it. We don't need it unless we're doing it in code, because code will require that script to be able to read the different functions we create. So let's open that up. And over here, I'm going to just essentially copy all of these into the first one. So I'm going to right click and say copy, go here and say paste. I'm going to move this to the bottom. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go copy, and I'm going to go, yeah, let's just paste it over here so it can go underneath. Okay, so we've got our jump, our slide, which we haven't implemented yet. So I'm just going to delete that for the time being, and we'll recreate that. So all we should have now is a jump button, move, and look. We can delete this action map and rename this one to just straight up player. There we go. And I'm just going to save that. The reason we had them in two separate ones was the script was easier to have all the vectors in one and all the buttons in the other. But now that we're going to do it the way that I figured it out, we're no longer going to be using that. So there we go. So now we've removed all the code. So this is all going to be bolt and only bolt. So in order for this to work, we are going to go to Tools, Bolt, Unity Options. And now that we're in the wizard, we're going to go to the bottom, we're going to click next, and we're going to go to the bottom here and add a few things. First, I'm going to add an input action. Okay, remove that. I think we need to go back. Let me just close this and do this again. Tools, Bolt, Unity Options. Let's go to the bottom here and just make sure that we have the input actions. Sorry, input system. What am I saying? Unity input system. Let's go next. Go down to the bottom here and let's start by adding the input actions like that. So we have the input actions. The next one is going to be the input action asset. That one over there. And then one more. Actually, the last one isn't really required, so we'll just leave it like that, because these are what's going to generate the way these look inside of Bolt themselves. So we need the input action and the input action asset. The asset is going to be referencing this FPS inputs over here. Okay, so far I hope this is making sense. It should make a lot more sense once we use this than having to go and write a piece of code. So this is completely 100% code free. This is all Bolt and only in Bolt. So we will have to wait for this to generate. Should be done soon. And then once it's generated, we are going to be using it to do everything. Now, the way I'm doing it is probably not 100% the best way to do it, but it's the best way I could find so that it works and it doesn't give us too many issues. I tried a few for each loops like I did in the script, and I just didn't like the way that worked. So now that we have that, I'm going to go back into our script. We should have a few missing errors because we deleted these. So I'm just going to, we'll come and replace these. So don't worry about that. When we start the game, we are going to create a new, okay, you can delete this new input that we had originally. I'm going to delete that because we're no longer using that script. Sorry, I seem to have these in here for some reason. Okay, so right at the bottom, I'm going to call this input action asset. So I'm just going to call this input action asset. You'll see that it requires you to reference the asset. So I'm just going to open that up, reference that. We're going to drag this in. And at the start of the game, we're going to go and drag off this and type in input action asset dot enable. The reason is, like if you saw what we did in the code, is these actions need to be turned on. They need to be enabled. So we're going to enable it when we start the game so that the inputs work. If we don't do this, the inputs aren't going to come through because they're not going to be turned on. Okay, so next thing after we've done this, we are going to just drag from this input action and do a for each. Do a for each loop. So for each action that's in this inside of here. So what that means is, if we go back to our actions, let me just dock it up here. So for every action in here, jump, move, look, we're going to be adding that to a list. It's just going to make it nice and neat, and then we can use it later on. Okay, so at the bottom over here, actually we can just put this directly in the graph. So in the graph, I'm going to add a new action list. Let's just call this action list. And we're going to do a list less than input. If I could spell input the first time, that would be great. Input action. So we're making a list of input actions. There we go. I'm going to hold down. I'm going to just hold nothing down. Sorry, just drag this in. We're going to drag off here and type in add item. Sorry. Doesn't like to connect it to the right one, so make sure the list is connected to the little list icon, and inside of the body we're going to plug that into this. And what are we adding? We're adding this item to the list. So for every control scheme item that we have, like in our case it's jump, move, and look, it is going to be adding it to this action list variable that we created. It's going to be a list of all the inputs we have. I'm going to put this into a comment group. Let's just call this update action list with all the available inputs. So that's what this is doing. It's just grabbing all of the available inputs, and it is putting it directly into a list that we can use later to make our character work. Okay, so that should do it for the list. I'm going to show you how we're going to implement this list by starting with the easy one, which is our jump. So I'm going to go down to the jump here. And if we look at the jump, we originally had okay, so we had grab the script, grab the on button down, then get the dictionary, and then do the jump. So we're going to delete all of these because we do not need them. We still need to make sure that we are grounded before we jump. So I'm just going to pop this in the top, right click to break it, and we're just going to put this at the top. What are we going to be doing down here? We are going to grab the action list. And I'm going to say get item. Now this is where it's not hard, but it's you just need to know where the action is in the list. I know my jump is at 0. How do I know this? When I go to my inputs, jump is at 0, then move is 1, then look is 2. 0, 1, 2. So I'm just using that value to track which one I'm looking for in the list. Once we have this, there is an action called triggered, like we did in the script. So I'm going to type in input action.triggered. So what that means is once the button has been pressed or activated, so if this is active and we're grounded, we are going to jump. There we go. And that's it. That will work on the jump. I'm just going to go and clear out any potential errors up here. So I'm going to grab all of these and delete those just so that we don't get any issues. Just to show you that the jump will work. And then we'll do the movement, and that's it for this video. Now this is a completely 100% code free. The errors are making me... Okay, so I'm just gonna, for now, just disconnect that so we get no more errors, just so that I can test the jump, and then we'll come back and fix that. Okay, there we go. I'm jumping. can only jump once. If we go to the inputs here, sorry, the flow graph, go down to the bottom where the jumping is occurring. Notice how it says false over here, and then when I jump, it goes true, and then goes straight back to false because it's been fired once. There we go. Okay, so I don't know why I have this sequence here, so let me just delete this. I had to redo my code because I lost it. I was working and then we had a power outage in the area and I lost all my work because the actual bolt file got corrupted. So hopefully you learn from that and don't do what I did. Save regularly and make sure that you have backups. Okay, so let's go to the movement and see how we apply the movement. Okay, so the movement has a weird error. So when the input is being used, it's not null, which means it's got 0, you get input values. When you're not using it, it goes null, which anyone knows when you're doing coding, whether it's in Bolt or C#, null will give us errors. So we had to kind of rework this system a little bit, but not a lot. We're just doing a few checks before we actually do the input. So I'm giving myself some room here. And I'm just separating, this is my going to be my camera, which I'm going to break out of this. So my camera is coming down here, and then this can continue into the animator like that. So we have our camera and our movement separate. And from the update, we are going to do a sequence node. Sequence node just allows us to add multiple things to a single update. It only goes up to 9. So if you try to put in 10, it won't work, but it will work up to 9 items in the same sequence. So it's just going to go through everything in the sequence and do whatever we need to do. So the first one, we're going to check for the movement. Okay, so what are we going to do there? Let's just move this across. We don't need this so close in the front here. We are going to drag off the first one and we're going to do a null check. So first I want to double check that the variable I'm going to bring in is not null. If it's not null, we're going to continue with that. And we're going to do the same thing, duplicate that and bring it down here. And we're going to plug it into the rotation for the camera sensitivity and the camera look, just so that we have all of that working correctly. So you'll see that we're not really doing anything new. We're just reorganizing the code. Like I said, there probably are better ways to do this. I just haven't found a nice way, like better than what I've done right now. I will do, as I do more research, if I come across something better, then I will inform you guys. Okay, so we're going to grab the input action list. We're going to go and say get item again, because we're getting the item at, remember the move was at 1. I'll duplicate this. Actually, we'll duplicate it afterwards. Now, what are we getting from this? It's not a simple trigger. It is, we need to get the read value. So we're going to go input action dot read value as object. So we're getting the value that is coming through, whether it be 1, -1, 0, that kind of thing. So we're getting the read value here. And we're going to, just to make sure, if this read value comes through and it's not null, then we're going to do the rest. Move this down. Okay, we're going to duplicate these nodes here and plug them into the second one here. And mine is 2. Just again, remember what number it is. So 0 is jump, 1 is move, and look is 2. So in my case, that's why I'm using 1 for move and 2 for look. So I can find the correct item and do the following. Okay, so if that value is correct, I'm just going to plug it into, remember we need to normalize that value so that we don't get anything greater than 1 or in either direction, whether it be negative or positive. Okay, so this is all for the rotation. The rotation is done. Now what happened, sorry. What happens is we need to now zero out this value, because this value is not going to update if this is null, and null means it's 0. So I'm going to just duplicate this input, bring it down here and plug it into the when it's null. What happens when it's null? I'm just going to go and create a new vector, vector 2. wrong one, sorry. New vector2 x and zero out that value. Actually, we can just use a wait for this vector2.0. That'll be easier, neater. So we're zeroing. So when we're pressing the buttons, we're going to get the input and move the character. When we release the buttons, we're going to just make sure that we zero out that input. And we're going to do the exact same thing for the rotation when it is null. I'm going to change this. Change this to look input because that's what we're using. I'm comparing it to this one above us, above. And from this null, we need to also remember to update the animator so the animation updates correctly. Okay, that should do it. So I'm going to just open up these comment boxes. Just move this a little bit closer. It doesn't need to be so far. You can find nice ways to keep this clean. You can put them in super units if you'd like. This might be a nice thing to put in a super unit, this read value, but I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to leave this for the time being. Now that we're done, I'm just going to reposition all of this so that it reads nicely. Remember, all the green is single shot kind of stuff, like on start. All the reds are updates, all the kind of orange are fixed update, and then all the yellows are late updates. That's the way I've color coded, just so I know how performance-wise how bad. So if I look at all the red, then I know that if I haven't controlled that properly, I could have a lot of issues down the line. Okay, let's see. I can look around, I can move, and just using Unity and Bolt. No scripting, no coding, everything works. So if we look in the code here, notice how it's currently null, because when we release the button, it comes back as null. I'm not quite sure why it should do that, but I think it empties out that variable. So that's why we are setting the move input, which is up here, to 0, just to make sure that the character does stop. If we don't do that and we release the button, the character would not stop. Notice how that is no longer null. And when I release it, it goes to null. And that's it. That is how you use the new input system completely without any kind of code. That is the best way I could figure out how to use it. So I hope this has helped. So now we have no longer got any C# scripts. We are just using Bolt as the visual scripting language of choice, and everything works. So if anyone else figures out a nice, cleaner way of doing it other than using a list, I would love to know in the comments. If you need have any issues, just comment, and I will be get back to you. I will be starting a Discord channel so that we can all just get together and just kind of talk all things Bolt and just talk about all the things we enjoy about it and all the things we wish it had. But yeah, no, I really didn't think you could do it without any C# scripts. So when that comment just got to me, the one that said like, I thought we weren't going to use any code in this, and it just kind of really got me thinking. So I hope this helps everyone out there who needed this. It works. Please use it. All we did was create a list of all the inputs at the start. And then in there, we find the specific input we're looking for. And we use that input and we track its value. In the case of a vector2 or a float, you can even use this for booleans, but I found for the jump, it is really nice just to use the input action trigger that comes with it. And that's it. So enjoy this. I hope this helps you guys. New input system for me is really, really cool because you can just keep adding. So if we add another one here, when the game starts, it adds the new one to the list, and you can do whatever you want with that. And that's it. So until the next video, I hope this has helped, and good luck and be safe.